Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Coding to Think. With me, I've got Thato Morobane. Thato is a digital channel manager and strategist. She's got a lot of experience in the tech industry. She's a director of Giving Wins, an initiative to develop better communicators. She's got qualifications in leadership and organizational management. How are you doing, Thato?
I'm well, thank you. And how are you?
I'm good, thanks. So yeah, Tato, tell us a bit about your journey to becoming a digital channel manager and strategist. What's a digital channel manager do?
I think it's a fancy way of saying you look after a channel or a platform. So,
Hmm.
yeah, a little bit about my journey. So, I am from a town called Rustenburg, which is in the northwest. And I think growing up as a child, I've always been very curious and inquisitive about certain things in life. So growing up, I imagined myself becoming a psychologist, funny enough, because I love working with people and I love understanding behaviors and how people respond to certain situations. I didn't end up doing psychology. So I then went into engineering. Funny enough, right? So you go from people all the way through to technical. So after 6 months of my engineering course, it quickly hit me that this is not for me. I can still remember one of my maths lecturers telling us about how exciting it would be to work under aeroplanes and do mechanics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the thought of it was just so like, I'm not going to do that. So I then remembered how much I really, really enjoyed tech when I was in high school. I started doing computer science in high school, and I got to really, it was challenging for me, but in the same breath, it was quite exciting because you could already see how the world was moving into a tech kind of space, and
Yeah.
the industry was growing. It
Mm,
was difficult to find, stories around women who were in tech, but I
mm,
thought to myself, like, this is quite interesting. Let me give it a try. So 6 months into my industrial engineering course, I switched over to IT. And I was very fortunate to be in a university that enabled me to kind of pick what it is that I wanted to do in IT.
yeah.
I went to the Tshwane University of Technology. And at that time, I think it was the only technology university that had multiple specializations in IT. So
Mm,
you could do from software development to web development to business informatics, which really struck a chord in me because I enjoyed business. And it also was an opportunity for me to work with people because a lot around business informatics had to do with business analysis. So
mm.
I went into it, and I think it was love at first sight. I was 6 months late into it, but you're never too late in life. So walking into the business informatics course was really amazing because I started understanding that there is more to tech, just more than just coding. So yeah, I was bitten by the bug and I fell in love with it, and I went on to complete my course in business informatics, and I started working for a company as a consultant. So
Mhm.
you can imagine fresh out of varsity, first job as an intern, and it's kind of like a consulting house where you're put on different projects. And I
Yeah.
remember my first project was nerve wracking. I think we were about 8 of us as interns walking into the space, and it was a government institution. And with government institutions, there's this horrible stereotype about, you hardly ever get to do anything. All you're going to be doing is sitting there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And being an intern was kind of like also quite difficult because I think there's a stigma around being an intern where people kind of forget you. You come in and then you're there in the corner. So I was very, very intentional around what I wanted to do. And I spoke to my managers at the time, and I had asked to be moved because where I wasn't doing much. And that's when I got into quality testing. So you go from engineering, business analysis to being a QA. But it was quite interesting because it enabled me to kind of start exploring within the system space. So we worked on old government systems, and I started feeling like, oh, this is this is like a lot to take in. It's not necessarily what I signed up for, but it's good exposure because it would give me a leg up in trying to understand a little bit more around what happens with the, because testing is really around how you bring together the requirements with the development, and now you're testing to make sure that it meets those requirements. So I spent a few months in that space, which was quite interesting, and then the bug bit again because I remembered that analysis is my first love. And then I got an opportunity to work for another organization where I got to do quite a bit of analysis work, which was quite exciting because it was in the retail space. So I got exposed to understanding how budgeting and forecasting systems are built, how algorithms are built to ensure that, from a retail perspective, we're able to budget accordingly, especially in sales. So yeah, I spent some time there, which was fun. Got challenged quite a bit. I think I was very young, and we were about a team of 3 people. And in that team, we had, I think, it was a challenge because I was also the youngest, and I had just walked into the space. So there was a lot of finding myself going through that journey. There was a lot of understanding myself in that process, because I think what I quickly realized is I'm able to identify what is it that I like and what is it that I don't like. So very quickly, after a few months of getting to understand the retail space, I then had a conversation with my manager, and I got onto a project in the pharmaceutical space. Still in systems, still trying to figure out how this waterfall way of work can be implemented. The project I was on was primarily waterfall based. And I remember having a conversation after 3 months being in that project, and my manager said to me, Thato, do you know anything about Scrum? I was like, what? What's Scrum? Like, no, it's this new methodology that they're using to build systems. It can enable us to test quickly and identify gaps. So I quickly thought to myself, well, you know what? It's an opportunity to learn again. Let's try this. But what I quickly realized is that I didn't really have the understanding of the methodology itself. And the environment I was in was an environment that was primarily a waterfall environment in terms of system development. So we would go through the cycle of development, and we would have challenges. But I quickly thought to myself, the best way to learn is to identify a space where I can really learn about Scrum. And that's when I went to ThoughtWorks, and that's where I met you.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, through ThoughtWorks, it was an opportunity to really learn around different ways of doing system development using Agile and Scrum, and really getting the value up front. And from then on, I think development started making sense. It started making sense to me because I could imagine that we could quickly put it on paper. You could physically, it was something that was tangible yet inexpensive because we hadn't developed yet. We could test things out, and we could really, get that necessary feedback that's needed and focus on user needs, which I think previously I had not been exposed to. So went through that process, lots and lots of fun, got to learn a lot there. And then I moved on from that experience, did a few things within ThoughtWorks, which was quite cool. Then I found another opportunity, which took me back to consulting. And I think in the space of consulting, for the time I was there with another organization, was really an opportunity for me to realize how organizations are struggling, especially legacy organizations, around reimagining how digital can work in their environment. Because there's always this tension that's created by the digital narrative and the realities of organizations that are legacy organizations. And I thought to myself, like, I really wanted a challenge, a big, big challenge. So I found another opportunity with a rather with an organization that had a long history of legacy, not only in their systems but even in their way of work. And I wanted a challenge, and that's how I ended up moving over to Momentum, which is where I am. And I'm currently the digital channel manager. So it's an exciting role where I get to manage a platform, the app platform there. And I have an awesome team of developers, business analysts, designers, testers, and we can almost like assist the organization in how to address the legacy component of their issues, and how to imagine how digital can really change the way the organization interacts, not only with their clients but also with the advisors, which is a big component of how Momentum works. So yeah, basically we do amazing things on the app.
Cool. Yeah, so when I was doing some research into what digital channel managers do, I realized that there were certain misconceptions that I had around what even channels are, right? Because I came to realize that channels can be broad, and when you hear channels today, you're thinking, must be social media channels. But then the more I looked into it, the more I realized that actually channels could be a way that businesses interact with their customers, or customers get to interact with those businesses. Yeah, so tell us a bit more about that. How can we define that part, the channel part? Because I it I'm thinking, if I had a misconception about what this is, there's probably people out there that don't have a full understanding of the digital channel part.
So very, very aligned to your research. It's really around interactions with our client bases, and we use those channels in order for us to engage with those different clients. So in my space, and I think language is also something really, really, it's unique to each organization and how each organization interprets it.
Yeah,
So in our worlds, we've got channels where we deal directly with advisors. So our business is primarily based on that advisor-client relationship. So
yeah,
those channels exist. And then we've got our client-facing channels, which sometimes can be referred to as platforms. So
yeah,
we've got teams focused primarily on the advisor component, and then we build solutions for that. And then from where I am, we build solutions for clients directly. Now, in that role, it encompasses quite a lot because you inherit an amazing platform, whether it be web, app, social media channels as well, which also can be seen as platforms. And you use a channel in order to build the solutions that are engaging and that also enable the organization to optimize itself by delivering these solutions through these different channels. So, for example, on my side, it would be an app channel. My partner works on the web. And then we've got other channels such as chat functionality, social media that is also managed by another colleague. I think in the encompassing of the role is, you ensure that you maintain, you support, you enhance, you grow the platform. I think in my space, what's really, really exciting, sorry, what's really, really exciting is that I get to do that specifically for clients. So you, Zazi, who has a product with us, I get those solutions for you. And it also gives me an opportunity to also understand, dealing directly with clients, what their needs are, and how do we translate those needs to usable, engaging features that can be used continuously. Because I think when we talk around digital and building for digital, you build for use, you build for experience and you build for engagement. So within that, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of using tools such as user testing to also gauge what makes sense, not only for the organization, because I think business needs are always critical, but when you build the client in mind, you always reach the ultimate success, because that means that you are answering the client's questions without even engaging with them, because now you're creating those solutions for them. So, yeah, in that space, there's a lot of that work that takes place. There's a lot of understanding, there's a lot of defining, and there's also a lot of, having to look into ourselves. Because I think as businesses, when we create solutions, a lot of the times we create the solutions to fit the need of the business. What we are now going through in this legacy organization is how do we now tailor solutions to fit the needs of clients? And these amazing channels afford us the opportunity to do that. And by using great methodologies within IT, such as Agile, we are able to quickly test in the market and come back and revisit what we've done. So, yeah, that's primarily what I do. I do a lot of that.
Yeah.
Also just making sure that we are on top of things in terms of what is happening in the tech space, what are the changes that are coming that impact our business and also impact our clients, and what changes come through that make us really need to take a step back and understand how do we create solutions that also fit into the changing world. I mean, you and I both know we're always, the last 2 years have been we've seen a huge trajectory in changes and how clients relate back to digital. So being a channel manager also it forces me to go into that space of always thinking 3 steps ahead around what's happening in the industry, what's happening globally, what's happening locally that influence how we address client needs. So yeah.
So, during your experience as a consultant, you probably got to interact with different organizations and companies, and might have picked up some of the challenges or mistakes that they that they make when developing strategies around um, either the product plans or digital strategy. What are some of those mistakes that you've seen organizations or businesses make when coming developing a digital strategy?
Hmm. I think for me, it's always been keep it simple. I think like simplicity is the best way to deliver any kind of message. When we complicate things, we open up a door where, you then go into this rabbit hole of trying to explain things all the time. I think the simplicity of it is what gives strategies power. At the end of the day, a strategy is always just an action plan that you formulate over a period of time to kind of like address the situation you're facing and also think forward around, should things change? How would I approach a situation? So looking at a strategy is defining where an organization is going and also doing that with an action plan in mind. And I think sometimes we do kind of overcomplicate it. I think, there's things that we try and add to strategies just to give them meat. But I think a very simple strategy, my favorite is a one-pager. Tell us what it is that you want to achieve. Tell us the time frame in which you want to achieve it, and tell us about the outcomes you expect to get out of it. And that's really my approach to building strategies. I think once you're clear on defining what your needs are as an organization, and it's really about the job that you need to get done. So it's understanding the business you're in. I always say, I'm in a grudge purchase industry. Insurance is grudge purchase. No one wants to buy insurance. But it's really around the job that needs to get done. And I think if you look at your industry and you tell yourself or your organization, wherever you are in terms of work or your career or even as an entrepreneur, is what is it that what experience do you want your clients to have? And once you've defined that experience, you just work backwards, because that becomes your organizational transformational purpose. I think organizations like Google and Tesla, they do it really well. They sell you a purpose.
Yeah.
And I always think to myself, like, that purpose becomes it's the heart of your strategy. It's once you're clear on that purpose, your strategy becomes easily defined, and the simplicity of it enables it to be easily absorbed by your audience, your people in like the people in the organization that you in, as well as the clients that you serve. So I think if organizations keep it simple, make it clear, it's a plan, guys. It's just a plan. You put your
Yeah.
plan down, and then you have an action plan around how you're going to achieve it. And I think, yeah, if that approach is taken, then it makes it easier.
Yeah, I like that. Keep it simple. Yeah. So, which leads me to my next questions. We all know that tech is forever changing. Which is good, which is probably the reason why we're in it, because there's always something new coming up, something exciting. Um, but I imagine when you're developing a strategy for a business, or you as a channel manager now, when you're trying to come up with a strategy, I imagine it makes it a bit tougher to decide on which channels, for example, to go for. So my question is, how do we align uh, our strategy with the forever changing technology and innovation in tech?
So I think it's always, I always go back to the purpose. I think in the purpose, it helps you simplify in terms of your approach. The beautiful thing about tech is that there's always something out there. I think over the last few years, we've started, how do I put this? Like we're starting to realize more and more the importance of data. I always say like data is like money. When you follow the money,
Follow the
where
money,
you're going.
follow the data.
Yeah, so if you following data
Yeah,
really, really assists you in finding what needs to happen over the next few months. I'm always very cautious around creating strategies that are 5 years out, especially in IT, because we're ever evolving. So I'm always trying to think around 3 years from now. And with exponential growth, you always, you almost it's Moore's law, right? So like 18
yeah,
months, you're always going to see rapid change. So it's always trying to take a step back and say, what are the things that are the central to technology today? And what we have identified is that what is central to technology is really data. So, in understanding how the data is being used, where the data is going, you start understanding and seeing what your strategy needs to talk to. So for me, I'm very passionate about experiences, and what data is now affording us in this whole ecosystem is personalized experiences. And
mm,
when I think about personalized experience, I think about myself, where you go through processes where you want things that are easy. And the more and more you start seeing what is happening in the environment and how people are engaging with these multiple different platforms, you
mm,
see the need for ease. People want things that are simple. They don't want to think too much, like if I'm on
yeah,
my phone, 3 taps in, I must be done. So it's really looking at those human behaviors for me that really assist me in defining how the strategy should be implemented, well, how the strategy should look. And then the ways of implementation around how we implement it is heavily based on how users interact, and doing a lot of research and understanding insights. I think it's quite critical. So right now, I think what people in this industry right now in IT, especially in the business field, data is one of those key things that I'm primarily focused on to understand how we create and develop new features and initiatives for
mm. Cool. Yeah, tell us a bit more about that, because so how do you use data to get an understanding of those experiences? Do you Because I'm actually seeing the psychologist part of you coming up here, trying to understand. So, but then how do you go about that? Do you is it more like in person interviews that you do to understand, or how do you go about using data to have an understanding of the experiences that people have?
So I think when it comes to people, so there's two parts to it, right? So there's what's existing and how people engage and interact with it. And then you find the gaps and you close the gaps by going through an iterative process of making the enhancements where needed. And this would primarily be around system-based solutions. So if you're looking at the platform, you've put out a feature of some sort, you use the data and the insight from that to see the how engaged your clients are. I'm big on people and psychology, so I watch a lot of documentaries around people.
Yeah.
I'm big on that. Understanding behaviors is really big for me. So, pulling in that insight from the knowledge that is out there, realizing the shift in people and what people are now passionate about. We humans are an amazing being because we're always trying to find the next. You're always trying to find ways to do better.
Yeah.
So I'll spend a lot of time doing a lot of research around that, watching documentaries. I read books that are like some are in tech, some are in people, a lot of psychology based books, just to
Yeah.
understand how the shift in people is happening and how people are, there's a reliance on technology for them to not only um, advance themselves in a way, but find better ways of doing things with their time, with their knowledge, with the activities that humans are creating. And those activities at some point in time bring you back to technology. Because what are you going to do? Pick up your phone, log in, chat. And I think from learning from that, you start identifying ways in which whatever business solutions you have, you then apply it to behavior that you're seeing. So it's really expanding myself, allowing myself to be in spaces where I can learn a lot more. Speaking to people, people are amazing. So when I'm in places, I think before COVID, I would have chats with people randomly just to understand who they are, and use that insight just to also build on how I interact with my team. And then I think, within the platform space, we have amazing teams that are focused in insights, analytics, doing UX design, understanding journeys, and we use that data to kind of like assist us in defining what experiences that we want to create. But I think if you open yourself up to a lot more than what is in front of you in terms of like work, and you go read interesting literature or watch interesting documentaries, that also assists me in getting my mind kind of like wired when I have to deal with certain challenges.
Another passion of yours is communication and being a better communicator, and that's shown by one of your initiatives, which is giving wings. Yeah, so tell us a bit more about that. Why is giving wings important to you? Why is it important that people become better communicators?
Giving Wings, huge passion project of mine. I think over and above passion project, it's also a business. A few years ago, my sister and I started a business where we were both in corporate, and she saw a huge gap when it comes to communication, especially in young adults, as well as the older generation, around how do you effectively communicate your message to an audience. How do you engage with an audience? How do you build a rapport around what it is that you have to offer, and ensure that the people that you're communicating to have an understanding of what you're saying? So
Yeah.
a few years ago, we then decided, we saw unemployment extremely high in South Africa, challenges, especially with kids that are coming from underprivileged communities.
Mm.
They struggle to really, really speak to what their value proposition is. Also, just to be to to actually enter an environment with confidence and speak to their abilities. And we then decided to start giving wings. We started off with a youth development program in Oliven. And through that program, we initiated an opportunity for young, educated adults and young kids to come join us to go through a communication skills training course where we took them through things such as creating a CV, going for interviews, standing in front of an audience, whether it's a panel interview, and helping them in how do they share their message using very defined key phases within the program, which is really, who are you? You know, the big question that everyone's afraid to be asked or everyone's afraid to answer. We really wanted to push these kids to really face that question and start defining for themselves who they are. We also we look at programs that address who do you want to be. So that's really talking to self-awareness, self-personalization, and also visualization, which is a big theme for us because we believe that you have to have a vision in order for you to achieve a dream. And lastly, the program is also focused as where do you want to go? So remember earlier when we were talking about strategies and action plans, this is really now you sitting down and finding that action plan of where it is that you want to go. So the organization has grown. We've got two parts of it. So we've got the corporate leg. My sister was fortunate enough to be able to be in the business full time. I'm part time in the business. So we do a lot of work with corporates around, leadership development, self-awareness and development, executive coaching, a lot of personalized journeys that are built specifically for the individual to help them achieve their goals. And then we have another side of the program, which is our nonprofit organization. And that's really primarily at the heart of what we do, which is giving back as well to youth. So yeah, it's an exciting space to be in. It's been a bit difficult with COVID because we run a yearly program with young kids in Oliven. Our plan was to really expand it last year. We wanted to bring on another township, but it was difficult with COVID. So our hope is we'll get to run it again this year with a bunch of awesome, amazing kids. We are targeting kids within grade 10 and 11. And yeah, it's quite an interesting space to be in.
Yeah. I mean, it also does resonate with me, like being able to improve your communication skills, because as a developer, developers are not normally associated with being excellent communicators, right? Technical skills, yes, but communication skills, it's not something that they're normally associated with. But I have seen the benefits of working on communication skills and being able better to articulate my thoughts and my thinking. So how do you see that playing out for people like myself that are developers, and I'm not normally associated with being excellent communicators? How do you see something like giving wings benefiting them?
So definitely, I think there's a benefit for all skills, like everybody communicates, but not everyone's an effective communicator.
Yeah.
And what does that really mean? And an effective communicator is really about your ability to capture your audience, share your message, and leave them with something that resonates. People should be remembered when you leave the room in terms of the message that you want to impart. And I think what we really focus on in giving wings is making sure that your message is clearly defined. We can say a lot, but I think it's always important to be able to define what it is that you're saying. So going through the opportunity or the courses that we offer in Giving Wings is, how do you craft your message? How do you craft your message that will resonate with the audience that you're speaking to? And it's also understanding that your audience is never the same audience all the time. So, when I spoke earlier around keeping it simple, I think that's also something that is very, very critical when communicating. because from a technical perspective, that if you are presenting to a room that is full of business people and a couple of technical people, you can't go too deep, otherwise you lose your audience.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so in the company and in the courses that we offer, we teach the individuals that we work with those kind of skills, like understanding who your audience is, what is your message, clearly defining your message by going through a funnel process of removing the fluff. The fluff is always good. You have the fluff in your message and it's all, we're using big language, but who's really understanding it? And I think that's what's beneficial. Is sure that as you walk into the different spaces, you're able to craft your message to really feed your audience, and in the same breath leave them with something. People should walk away from your session or your talk or whatever it is that you're sharing. At least 80% of the room should understand. And I think sometimes we're in the technical space. It proves to be a little bit difficult for everyone to get your message understood. So yeah, simplifying it, crafting it, speaking to your audience. And it's not to say you will not have a technical audience. It's also just how you deliver your message, because in delivering your message, there's also a component of capturing your audience. So we assist individuals in doing that and crafting it quite well and being able to present it with confidence, because I think that's also so important. You need to bring your best self forward. And when you're confident in what you're sharing, everybody else we all accept it. We're like, yay!
Yeah, yeah. So that brings me to my last question, which is so what are some of the interesting problems that you would like to solve? I mean, you're already solving a really interesting one, which is around communication, one that also resonates with me. What other interesting problems are you looking at solving?
Sure. I think people are my so I think over the last few months, mental health has been such a big thing for me. Um, we've gone through a really, really tough phase in the world, and I think the world all over, we are finding new ways of problem solving, new ways of engagement, new ways of communication. And mental health over the last few months has been something I'm really passionate about. When you work in a team and you see the challenges that people are going through with COVID and personal issues. I mean, I work out of my daughter's bedroom. I don't know how many times she tries to kick me out in a week because now I'm homeschooling too. So it's really around how do we solve for mental health. And I think for me, it starts with understanding the person. We come home, we don't go to work half a person. You don't have your work person and your home person. We come home, and creating a work-life balance for me is creating a space in our work environment. When people leave the office, they can be present at home. You don't have to sit and be stressed about, oh gosh, I've got these 10 things to submit. So now you're home, but you're not home. It's bad enough we have to work in our homes, but now when your day is done, my main objective is to try and not get people to continuously think about work, because that means they're not present. And if you're not present at home, when you get to work, you're not present at work, because it's the cycle of life. So creating spaces in my team where we can have open, robust communication, where we can be upfront about what is challenging, where we can sit together and actually formulate solutions together, and you don't have one individual giving direction on everything. It's that environment where we are continuously communicating and aligning with each other. And it's been a difficult road for me to travel. I think when you walk into any space, you bring forward what you know, and you try and impart as much as you know to others. But what I've learned in the last few years, especially in my current role, is when you walk into a space, you need to enable the people around you, kind of like give you an indication of who they are, and help that define and direct how you will engage with that team. I always say, being a leader has made me one of the or has made me a student. I sit literally at the front of the lecture room. The team is my lecture and I'm the student. So I'm always sitting and learning from them. And what that has enabled me as a leader is to take a step back and think beyond, just my needs and just delivering on these needs. It's understanding the people I'm working with and how to create the best environment for them to continuously thrive. And for me, that is creating that work-life balance where when you're at work, you can be whole at work, you can be present, you can work to deliver what you need to deliver. And when you're at home, you can be home. You shouldn't be like consumed with work issues. And that's how I'm trying my best to create a space where there is that sense of work-life balance. So yeah.
Tato, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to catch up with you, and I've I've also learned quite a lot today, and I hope our viewers and listeners have also learned from your story and what you had to share with us today. Um, one more thing, regarding your work and all the initiatives you're taking. How do people follow you and your work?
You can follow me on LinkedIn, Thato Morobane.
Tato, thank you.
Thank you, Tati.